After me, lost in doubt, trying to find a way out. These lies within, they hold me tight. In the dark, I lose my fight.
Chapter 4. Anchor.
Into the woods I go, chasing my inner peace in search of my soul and to detach myself from the world.
David was always the kind of man who showed up, quietly, consistently, without the need for praise or recognition. If you needed help, he'd be there, whether that meant pulling your car out of a ditch or just listening to you cry without trying to fix it. That's just who he was. But over the years, the weight of life, especially the unrelenting punishments and sharp-edged moods of his wife, began to wear down something inside him. His trust faded, slowly and then all at once, not just in Carla, but in people, eventually, even in himself. Still, even as that trust dimmed, his compassion never left him. No matter how much he wished he could shut it off and protect himself, empathy was etched into his bones. He was wired to care, to help, to love, even when it hurt, even when he got nothing in return. The cool air flowed over him like a balm, an invisible blanket of calm. Autumn had always been his season, a bittersweet beauty that matched how he felt most days. The soft rustling of leaves, the earthy scent of decaying wood, and the heavy clouds overhead made him feel alive. Not in an ecstatic way, but in a quiet, grounded sense of presence. This was the first time he'd gotten out to the Turkey Pen Trail that season, nestled deep within Ha-Ha-Tonka State Park. A 7-mile loop that fewer people bothered with, probably because it didn't have the same photo-worthy appeal as the castle ruins, but that's what David liked about it, its solitude, its honest silence. It didn't ask anything of him. As he rounded a bend, something on the ground caught his eye. A flash of plastic in the fallen leaves. A driver's license and a bank card. Great, he thought, picking them up. Megan Delaney, the name read. He sighed. This was going to interrupt his hike, but he knew he couldn't just leave it. He called the number on the back of the card, got through to someone at her local bank, and was told he could drop them off at the ranger station. His steps grew quicker, his sense of responsibility overriding the peaceful rhythm of the walk. It was annoying, sure. But if it were his ID, he'd want someone like him to care enough to do the same. But when he got to the station, it was closed. Another long sigh. Of course it was. He stood there, thumb rubbing at his temple. He could have just left it, but that didn't sit right. So he called the bank again, got an address this time, and decided to take it straight to the bank. I hope she pays it forward, he mumbled to himself as he slipped the items back into his pack. That wasn't the only time he'd gone out of his way. There was the time on the Katy Trail, biking alone through the summer heat, when he spotted something slumped in a ditch. At first, he thought it was just debris, but as he neared, he saw it was a man, sprawled out next to a half-fallen bicycle, the smell of sweat, beer, and piss hanging in the air. David almost kept riding. He was reluctant. Not out of apathy, but caution. You never knew how someone might react, but leaving someone in that condition felt like a quiet kind of cruelty. So he circled back. The man was conscious, but barely, muttering something about his girlfriend. Apparently, he'd thought it was a brilliant idea to bike over 100 miles in blistering heat to win her back. Love, David thought bitterly, makes idiots of us all. He called the police and waited with him until help arrived. The guy barely thanked him. And yet, David understood. He really did. Because in his own way, he'd made a 100-mile journey for love, too. Maybe not on a bike, maybe not in the heat, but in all the ways that matter. He'd given everything he had for Carla. Time, energy, dignity. And if he knocked on her door today, he was half sure some other man would be standing behind her. The thought made his jaw clench. He tried to push it away. "It's just in my head," he told himself. But the gnawing doubt never left. Another time, during a quiet grocery run, he noticed a woman wandering the aisles. Her movements were slow and confused, as if she'd forgotten why she was there or what she was even doing. People walked by her, some glancing, some pretending not to notice. That was the part that haunted David most. How easy it had become for people to look away. He wondered if he'd ever become that person. Someone who walked past suffering because they were too busy, too tired, or too self-absorbed. Someone who once had a heart but let it shrink. Not today, he decided. He walked up to her, gently asked if she was okay. She couldn't answer coherently, but she squeezed his hand when he offered it. He stayed with her, called for help, and kept her company until the paramedics came. He couldn't remember a word of their conversation, only the deep, unshakable sense that once this woman had been someone's whole world, and now she was alone and lost. He hoped fiercely that she would find peace again. David's beliefs about love weren't shaped by romantic comedies or Hallmark cards. To him, love wasn't about how someone made you feel. It wasn't about grand gestures or poetic words. Love was sacrifice. Love was what you gave. He often said, "If you want to feel love, don't wait for it to come from someone else. Do something for them. Give something of yourself. That's when love fills your heart, when you let it flow outward." But he'd also learned, the hard way, that your sins against the one you love leave scars. Even the secrets they don't know about. Every betrayal, every harsh word, every moment of cowardice, they don't just hurt the relationship. They eat at you, quietly, relentlessly. If you can't love someone anymore, he would say to himself, it's probably because of what you've done to them. Every selfish act is a small cut in your own heart, and eventually, you bleed out. David was tired, but he wasn't hollow yet. Something in him still believed, or wanted to believe, that goodness mattered, that maybe, despite everything, love could still be worth the cost. Many of David's walks weren't just about getting exercise. They were small rituals of survival, a quiet act of rebellion against the chaos of his life. They were the only moments he could control, when no one was asking for anything, and he didn't feel the need to apologize for falling short. He'd often walk for hours, letting his feet carry him through forest paths, quiet parks, or even just around town. It wasn't always about the scenery, though the colors of fall or the stillness of winter helped. It was about the silence, about the space to let his mind unravel, stretch out, and examine all the tangled parts of his life. The truth was, David was an overthinker. His mind never stopped spinning, never gave him much rest. If anything, the solitude just gave it more room to roam. But somehow, walking made the noise feel less aggressive, like the rhythm of his steps soothed the static. He'd think about things most people would laugh off, like whether his feet were pushing down against the earth, or if the earth itself pushed his feet back with every step. Was he carrying himself forward or being carried by something larger? He wasn't sure. But he liked questions like that, the kind that didn't really have answers but made the world feel more mysterious, and maybe a little more beautiful. David loved language too, not in the formal sense, but in the way a person loves finding pennies on the ground. He appreciated a sentence that meant two things at once, or three. Words that could dance between ideas. He liked the trick of them, the honesty inside ambiguity. Philosophy fascinated him, not because he studied it, but because he lived it, wrestled with meaning in the middle of sleepless nights and silent walks. He often thought maybe that was one of the things missing between him and Carla. Depth. Not that she wasn't capable of it, but the kind of deep, meandering conversation he craved always seemed to drift away with her. He wanted more than just shared space. He wanted to share meaning. It was hard to explain to anyone, even himself.
You never raised your voice to stay. You never begged for them to see. But in the silence of the storm, you held the ground beneath their feet. They never saw the weight you bore, the cost of love without return. But every step, though torn and slow, you walk through fire just to learn. You're the anchor in the water, the stillness in the tide. You held it all together while the world passed you by. No spotlight, no glory, just bruised and unseen. But you stayed when it hurt. You stayed when they'd leave. You fixed the door, you fed the cat. You filled the fridge, you took the blame. You did the things they all forgot. They never once asked, what do you need? Maybe love's not in the saying, or in how the story's told. Maybe it's in quiet hands that never let you lose your hope. You're the anchor in the water, the stillness in the time. You held it all together while the world passed you by. No spotlight, no glory, just bruised and unseen. But you stayed when it hurt. You stayed when they leave. So here's to the ones who carry the weight and never let go, never to be thanked, to be known, to be free, but still love through